Welcome to As The Pokéball Turns, where every trainer has a story. I'm David Hernandez. I am joined by Upbeatdata. Upbeatdata, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm feeling a lot better. I've been down with the sickness for the past couple days, and I'm feeling much better than when I first started. Let's put it that
Oof,
way.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm very glad that you're doing better.
Well, we've talked about it in private, so this isn't like some private conversation, but I'm glad that you can join the show. I was really looking forward to just being able to bring people who are part of the Pokemon Go community and just be able to bring the story on how Pokemon Go came into their lives and how it's affected it
Sure.
overall. And my first question would be is like, before we even get into the Pokemon Go part, did you ever play Pokemon even prior to Pokemon Go?
So, no, so I'll give you my only history with Pokemon. The answer is no, but I remember being really young and I did like Pikachu. So I know I had a Pikachu stuffed animal at some point. But I remember being really young and there was something called Pogs. And so I do remember Pokemon Pogs. And then after that, I feel like the generation that kind of grew up with Pokemon was a generation that I babysat for. So I know this song, the lyrics word for word, because the kids listen to it every single day.
So Pokemon came out around, I think in the US around 98, 99, give or
Mhm.
take. So do you remember what the craze was like at that point, or is that just kind of where you were more older at the point to where you just weren't interested?
Yeah, I was older at that point. And so then my Pokemon Go journey didn't start till way later. And it was actually, I guess if the craze was around 99, it was a little earlier that the show was out that I know the kids that like I was babysitting for were watching it.
Wow. And what do you think? You just thought it was just too childish at the time, that it wasn't just something that you should be into kind of thing?
I didn't even think about it, to tell you the truth, because I mean, I had no problem with Space Jam. I mean, they watched Space Jam all the time, and I would watch Space Jam with them ad nauseum. I mean, they watched it on repeat.
Oh my
When
gosh.
Pokemon would come on, can I tell you what I actually remember was the craze about parents and saying that the graphics were too much for the kids and making them have seizures and stuff. That was like what I remember during that time that I was babysitting, and I was like, I don't really have an issue with Pokemon's graphics. So
Oh, I didn't actually know about that earlier, but I realized that as I got older, I learned that there was actually some censored episodes. One because of
yep.
9/11, but the other one was the seizure one you talked about. And that's actually the Porygon episode we never got here in the States.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, and I'm sure you probably don't know either, Sam,
Yeah.
there was actually an episode from Porygon to where there was like a lot of flashing lights. And when it was over in Japan, I believe, there were actually reports of kids getting seizures from the sudden bright lights from the episode.
Hmm.
So much so that they actually never released the episode officially in the US. And that's kind of where that whole thing probably came from that you heard about. That's my guess
Hmm.
at this point.
And you know what? It came over almost like you just said. It was like a game of telephone from when it was in Japan. Since I don't know, I just know from what you just said. By the
Right.
time it got to the US, it was like, oh my goodness, like there's the scenes and the way that this anime is, the graphics, it's making kids have seizures. It was almost as if it was all episodes, the way they were talking. So that's really interesting to hear.
So we go from 98, 99 to 2016. That's when Pokemon Go officially released on launch.
Yes.
Did you, on the initial hype train, were you officially hooked on the game at that point, or was it still a little bit far away from when you entered Pokemon Go?
So it came out. I heard about it and I thought it sounded really cool because this is still, to me, AR stuff was still really new. And so the fact that you can kind of point your phone around and look for stuff. So I downloaded it and started walking around. The only problem was I was in the middle of nowhere, Texas in 2016. And I'm talking like when I say I go walk around, I walk up a county road and back, and all I see are cows, for like miles.
Okay.
I didn't see any Pokemon. This went on for maybe about me walking around the block a couple times, and then I just put it down and didn't pick it up again until 2020. But that was my early experience with Pokemon. I wanted to play, but it didn't want me to.
That's crazy because we hear a lot about how people live in these rural areas, and I venture out to them when I go to state parks, and there's literally nothing whenever you go out there. Like, unless you go out there for yourself, you literally realize how disadvantaged that you are in a rural area compared to like in a city. And even where we're at
Oh,
right
yeah,
now, like it's night and day.
absolutely. Yeah.
It sounds like you only played for like what, maybe a week or two and then just put the game
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't, if there were even Pokestops, there were none in my game. If there were gyms, there were none in my game, So there was literally just nothing. There weren't even Pokemon. So
Remember your starter?
I don't know. If I had to guess, though, I probably would have picked Pikachu, but I don't remember.
That's fair. I mean, Pikachu's a fan favorite. We have a mutual friend who was obsessed with Pikachu.
Yes, yes, we do.
How about talking about? So I believe you're Team Valor, correct? That's the
Oh,
team you
yeah.
chose. How about you go into reason why you chose Team Valor?
When it came to the options of what team to choose, and so I wasn't big into any community at the time, so this was a decision that I kind of just made all on my own. I thought it was a really cool looking symbol, and it reminded me of like the Firebird symbol. And I also love cars, but I just thought it was cool looking. The Mystic one didn't really do anything for me, and neither did the Instinct. And so it was just Valor all the way. And plus, I like red versus blue or yellow. So
Okay, that's fair. And have you taken a look at the new? I don't know. They call it. This the Galarian form of Moltres. Have you taken a look at that?
I have, and I want it so bad. I just had one run on me the other day. So yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wanted it. I
Gosh.
wanted it to stay. I thought that, since I love Valor so much and I want this Moltres so bad it's going to stay, but it didn't. It ran.
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe the next one will stay around.
I'm
So
hoping,
is the
yeah.
Galarian Moltres still your favorite out of the three, or do you have maybe a new favorite? Just bird wise.
So I got to be honest, when it comes to the birds, my favorite is Ho-Oh.
No, I'm talking about the Galarian Pokemon. So Galarian,
Oh,
Articuno,
the
Moltres,
Galarian.
Zapdos. I agree
The,
though. If they made a Ho-Ho team, I probably would jump ship
right?
from Team Mystic. Like a Team Ho-Ho team, that would be so cool. Like I love Toho. I love the
Yeah.
bird. I love the Phoenix. Phoenix is one of my
Yep.
favorite mythological creatures. Like I would jump ship if they ever made a Team Ho-Ho for sure.
I am right there with you. And my personal opinion is that it would be orange. I don't know, but that's just what color I think the team would be. But I'm right with you. I agree 100%.
Right, right. But now going
Yeah.
back to the question though, so like out of
Sure.
the new Galarian birds, is that still your favorite Moltres, or do you prefer any of the others?
So no, Articuno is actually the prettiest. That is
Really?
Yep, that is such a pretty bird. So I've encountered all three, and the Moltres, obviously, I wanted the most. The first one I encountered was Zapdos, that I encountered. That was the first to run from me. And then Articuno, but that one was so pretty. The colors, the purple with the green, and then the black. And we have a mutual friend that did an AR with that up against like some waterfalls. But it's so pretty. I want it. It's so pretty.
It just looks so. I know the one you're talking about, Articuno. It looks so
Yes.
sophisticated. Like it looks like it's at a ball, and it just needs a
Right.
tuxedo, like
Yeah.
one of those. I don't know what time period. I'm going to completely butcher this, but like 1800 balls where they had the glasses and at the hand, you had to hold it or something like that. Like
Right.
that's the vibes it gives me. I don't know why.
No, you're right. That could definitely be. See, I see more as a female though, as like very glamorous, ball gown, kind of flowy. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I want it, but no, won't
Niantic
stay in
says
the
no. Yeah.
They say the nay no, my brother.
Well, let's go ahead and fast forward to when you returned to the game in 2020. Was it before the pandemic or after?
So when it comes to pandemic babies, I am a Pokemon pandemic baby.
Like you
Pokemon
came right
grew.
when we were shut down and everything happened and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I'm at work and everything's pretty much shut down. Not entirely, because obviously I'm still working, but I see a friend of mine and she's like pointing her phone at another friend, but it's not like at the friend, it's like sort of at the floor. And I'm like, what are you doing? And so I look over and I see, like, I could tell what a Pokemon looks like, So I see a Pokemon. I'm like, are you catching Pokemon? And she's like, yeah. And she says she's playing Pokemon Go. And I was like, really? Okay. And she's like, yeah, you should download it. And so I mentioned the story, like I previously said, how I'd played, for a week or two. So I actually ended up downloading it right there. And one of the reasons, too, she was a new mom at the time. And so she would actually take Pokemon out when she would walk her baby. And so that's how she would do like her egg hatching and go catch and stuff. And so from there, I downloaded it. And then next thing you know, being someone that works 8 to 12 to however many hours a day, then everything shut down and I needed something to do. Like I needed something to dive headfirst full on into. And that ended up being Pokemon. So I leveled up pretty quickly after that.
That's pretty awesome, and it's a world of difference when you're around a lot of spawns and Pokestops compared to being in the rural area, I imagine.
Yes. So I could not believe so I just happened to move to a place called City Line in Richardson, and there were stops everywhere. There were gyms everywhere. And so it was something that I'd never seen before. It was all brand new, but I realized how many people in that area have to play because it's also pretty much all new construction. So all those gyms, I mean, I know this now, I didn't know it right when I downloaded it, but I saw the difference because even that day, we were in a little bit more rural of an area that day at work. And when I got home, I was like, man, I live like next to two gyms. Like,
So for those who don't know, and I did a horrible job introducing this person, Miss Sam is actually the owner of the Richardson City Line group run on both Facebook and Discord. So what City Line is actually an area within Richardson, Texas itself. And I think it's believed it's mostly apartments, right? And there's parks.
mm-hmm. So it's apartments, but what it is, so it's on the line between Richardson and Plano. It's like sometimes my Pokemon actually show up as being caught in Plano versus Richardson. So, but there are, yes, apartments, parks. But when I say apartments, there's one, two, three, there's like 7 apartment complexes in a small area.
There's a
That's
lot
called,
of apartments in the area, yeah.
yes.
And there's also shopping centers, right? Or
Yep, yep.
not shop, well, not shopping centers, but like restaurants or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Idoku's there. I love their sushi. And then there's Whole Foods and just a whole series of restaurants. And basically everyone has a stop.
I mean, so you got into Pokemon Go. So how did the building up the group start? Like, when did that come into your journey?
Well, so the first thing that I thought, so you got to kind of picture it. So City Line was a very hustle bustle place. There's a lot of people around, a lot of cars around. And now it's shut down. There's nobody walking outside. And so what happened was I started going out to kind of play because, we were shut down. We weren't doing much. So what happened was I realized, okay, so if there's all these gyms here, there's got to be people playing because this is a pretty new area. So I was like, how am I going to find these people? And so how do you find people? Well, you find people a lot of times on Facebook. So I made a Facebook group, and it turns out somebody ended up joining the group. I must have shared it in one of the bigger groups, and somebody joined that lived in my same apartment complex and invited me to a Discord, which Discord was brand new to me. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it is, what it does, and invited me to the Discord group. And from there, I slowly learned, what Discord was. And so then I had the Facebook and started growing that, but then made a Discord server that was dedicated to the City Line area. In the meantime, so the server actually grew out of a chat. So we started a chat that was just people who are really hardcore into raiding, because that's one of my raiding and Go Battle League are like 2 of my Pokemon addictions. And we had a chat of about 10 people. And once it started pushing, because you could only have a chat with 10. And so once it started pushing that we needed more people, that's when I started building the server.
So when you say chatting, you mean like the Facebook chats or?
No, so we were in a Discord group chat.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
And you could only have, a total of 10 people. And so it started getting more than 10. And the cool thing is, it was people from all over. So it wasn't just like, it was several people from City Line, but then also people from California, people from Australia, just people that were hardcore raiders that I ended up somehow connecting with.
Wow. And so the amazing part about your group is I oversee a lot of the communities. There's a lot of communities who come to my DFW Pokemon Center Discord, and that's how people used to be able to get connected because DFW is so huge. The one thing I've always noticed is that when people try to start new groups, they usually don't go so well because they either leave it hoping it runs itself, or they get too busy, or they just don't know what they're doing. Now, what makes your group such an interesting, not project, but just a fascination for me is that you're in Richardson's a very active community for Pokemon Go. Like, it's not like just something that's not been developed.
Mm-hmm.
But for your group to just grow from that and to be its own little thing is pretty remarkable, in my opinion. And it shows how dedicated you are as just a leader and how much you really try to make sure your group is very active and it has a community of itself.
It does, and I really appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. So when I first got on Discord, I ended up joining some Discords, and I didn't feel a sense of inclusivity. I didn't feel all that welcome to be myself, honestly. And I realized that, I want there to be a community where people can come and almost share ownership. So everybody that joins the Discord, nobody is getting told, that you can't run raids. If you want your own channel, it's someplace that's very democratic, and I think that's really important. And by democratic, I mean everybody has a say. So people have a voice in that server. So if you ask me why I think it's successful, I think that it has a lot to do with treating people as equals, treating people respectfully. That's actually one of our main rules, and the rule that I really enforce is that be kind. And I'm not even joking about how strictly I enforce it. Yeah, we joke around, we can be sarcastic, we could be funny, but you could tell if somebody's getting snarky, they're going to get a warning. Like this, cuz why do we all play Pokemon? We play it for fun. I mean, for me, this is my escape. This is where I go to have fun and kind of let go of my day. So there's no reason for there to be any unhappiness, any negativity, any drama. Let's just make it a fun place where everybody has a voice and everyone can be themselves. So that's my goal of the group.
So from what it sounds like, so it's basically positivity, it's being respectful, and what other things besides that you want your group to value? What was the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, those are basically it. Respectful and being able to express themselves, being able to be yourself.
There we go. Expression,
Yeah.
of course. And that's been what's drived you to make the community to what it is today, and probably continue moving forward.
Exactly. And also, we have a unique subgroup. So it's all ages. So you could be somebody that's young. You could be maybe 15. We try to maintain a respectful, like I do have a place where we can post, that's a private little section where you can post some things that are a little more off color, but we try to maintain where it is still somewhat, kid friendly. So you could be 15 and be in there, but you could also be 65 and be in there and still feel like you belong. So it's also very diverse.
Definitely, because I remember I met Danky Doo. I met her because she's from Gun Barrel City, and she's going to be eventually a guest as well.
Oh, nice.
And she's more of she's more of a seniority, let's put it that way. And it just goes, and that's kind of something that kind of got lost, because I know you didn't get to experience Pokemon Go prior to, but that's been the fun part about Pokemon Go itself, is that it's brought different people from different backgrounds, different age groups, especially ones who maybe wouldn't have been introduced to Pokemon. Because like you said, when you first started, when Pokemon first came out back in 1998, 99, if you were at a certain age, it felt like this is not something I'm supposed to do.
Gotcha.
And there's always been that stigma. Even I grew up with that when I was still in Pokemon. I was in middle school. I felt like I'm too old for this, but I still love the game.
Yeah.
And that's been the beautiful part about Pokemon Go, is that it's allowed people to kind of same values as you did. It allows them to express themselves, express this interest in the game. In spite of it only coming out for when it was for little kids, it's for everybody. It really is.
No, I was just going to say, I love combating that stigma. I love saying to people, like, what's one of your hobbies? If they ask me, I'm going to put Pokemon Go. And if they ask me about it, I'm going to talk about, this community. I just had recently a community day get together, and this is like the majority of my friends, especially and a good chunk of us are not from Texas. So it's people that you really wouldn't have anybody to, you don't necessarily like my childhood friends are back in New York. So you may not have, your childhood friends near you, or even people to go and hang out with. And now I've got this like booming, community of people that we have real get-togethers, and we're all just regular people having fun playing a game. So I think it's important to get rid of that stigma. So I share openly and proudly that I am a Pokemon Go player. So.
Well, that's good to hear. I had a little trouble getting to that point, but it finally took a friend. She said, I like what I like. And when she said that, I'm like, I can get with that. Yeah. And eventually I got to the point where I'm okay with, well, now I'm definitely okay with saying it. But going back to just with regards to building a community, like, say, for example, somebody doesn't know how to start a community, or they don't really have people who play the game. What would you recommend to them to be able to build a community up, or to start one from your own personal experience?
So what I think is, there's something that you want to do, right? So let's say you're in an area and you're like, I want people to raid with. I just say, go ahead and start. I think that that's always the hardest part. I don't think you have to plan it out. When I started, it was only a few months after I even first learned what Discord was. So you can learn as you go. You could literally start with just a chat in a server and you could go from there. So to anybody that's wanting to start a group, the first thing I would say is start, and then figure out how you want to invite people. The next thing I would say is one thing you do have to plan for and know is how you are going to lead that group. So I think you need to make your rules. What are the principles and what are the rules that you want to run this group by? But that's one of the things that I think is really important is knowing what your goal is, but not procrastinating. Just start.
And that's some very good details because I think a lot of people think that you have to be this very notable person, but really just the idea of just starting something and seeing where it goes is enough to really get a community going. Like when I started this podcast, I had no idea how to do a podcast. I still sometimes don't know what I'm doing. But it's one of those things to where you learn as you go, you add on to things and like you build ideas from other things you see from other servers, like what you talked about earlier. I see things from other podcasts that I'm like, I want to add something like that to my podcast. Now, I don't copy it straight word for word, but I incorporate it in some way that it reflects who I am. And it comes out that way. In the same way with your Discord community, like you find things that you like, that you see other places, and you bring it in and you incorporate your own idea to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually, on that topic, I always give a huge shout out to the Richardson Rocket server. And we could probably share more info about that, and also Pogo Badger, because looking at the Rocket server, after I made my server and started joining different Discords, I sort of saw the direction I wanted to take it in. And there were some really great examples, and it was from that Richardson Rocket server. So I definitely encourage people to check it out because you see things and you're like, you know what? I think that would be a good idea in my server as well. So that's a group that I enjoy being a part of. And another thing that I think is really big is how you treat people when they ask questions. And in that server, and also something I strive to do in my server, I never felt less than when I was asking questions. Because, people are like, oh, I've got a stupid question. Like, no, I mean, it really depends on who's answering it, how you feel. And people were very knowledgeable, very welcoming, and really made me feel like it was okay to ask questions in that server. And so that's also something that I brought along into my server, and creating it was the way that they were very welcoming and answering in questions.
Definitely. And that's one thing I learned when I was taking ownership of the Facebook group. And I've talked about this before. Like, I've played this game from day one. I've been upfront about that since I started this. The one thing that I had to take a step back from, and I've always encouraged other people to do it who's played this game, is that not everybody plays this game as much as I did, or has come at the same point of the game as I did. What I mean is, you're a prime example. You came in 2020, right when the pandemic was happening. You probably had the quest where you had to catch a Ditto. You probably had the quest where you had to evolve a Magikarp, right? And I was always one of those snobby elitists, and I'll hold it probably because that's part of my history, to where I'm like, why are we still talking about this? We should all already have it, because you have to step back and view it as a time frame to where people come into this game differently. They come in and out, and you have to have that patience to where not everybody's going to be where I'm at. And I think that was the biggest challenge for me, because I had to kind of get my head out of the what to be able to kind of humble myself and be able to share the stuff that I have gained, and to be able to make me more approachable, as well as to be more welcoming to people who come into this community.
Yeah, and I think honestly, you made a really good decision not trying to do my own, but asking me to come and help admin that group, which thank you. But also, I'm someone that I could be on the same steps as they are, or it's something that I've recently completed. So I kind of see where they're coming from a little bit better, than as if I had been playing since 2016. So I think that that's something that I personally have found looks like it's helpful to the group.
Well, since you've had to manage the City Line group, what's been the biggest challenge you think so far?
My main challenge is if we do run across somebody that's joined, that's being a little snarky or not really promoting I guess I would call it almost like, I'm using some of these terms, but like a core culture is that kindness. And so having to do any sort of confrontation has been a challenge for me. I mean, I've got a mod group and we've got a group of moderators, but I'm usually the one, once we make the decision, that's going to reach out to the person and say, hey, this is something going on that we kind of, can you please not do this, or kind of not talk to people this way? So that's a challenge for me personally. The only other challenge is as it grows, growing with it, and making sure that you have built a server that can grow. And so when I first built it, my goal was for it to be worldwide rating, like to have people from all over. So I tried to build it to anticipate growth. So that's challenging. That as more people join, you kind of got to make more space almost.
Have you considered what's going to happen once the remote raid nerf kicks in? Like how that's going to affect your group at all?
I haven't, for the main reason. So there's two reasons. One, it's such a cash cow. I mean, when you think of how much money they are making off remote raids, and also I feel like it's really bringing people together. So I'd like to tell a quick story. I don't know how they found me, but I had two people. I'll call one Tuss and the other's Crispy Wags. But we would always invite one another to raids. And I had no clue where they were from other than where their gifts come from. So one gift came from New Zealand, one came from Sweden. Next thing I know, somehow Tuss's wife finds me on Facebook. And I've got nothing Pokemon Go on my Facebook. But somehow she found me and she says, "Hey, Tuss is my husband. I'd love to raid with you too. Can you please add me?" And so now I have her and her husband are both friends. But I mean, we are close friends. Like I may actually
Aw.
go to Sweden and visit them. That's how often we talk. So it's bringing people together throughout the world. Now, if I couldn't remote invite or be remote invited to those raids, that never would have happened. So that's the first reason why I don't see it immediately happening. Now, if it does, I'm also down for that too, because then we'll go back to the raid trains where, you're all in your cars or you get in a van together and you drive around and raid. I experienced it a little bit before the real shutdown came. I actually recently, somebody joined the server and hosted a raid. And so what I did was I went and made a little medal to give them, first raid hosted, because people don't realize what a challenge that is. And so
Yep.
I want people to know it's as big of a deal as it is.
It
And so
really is. Yep. And
yeah,
that's this issue we ran into with in-person raids because everybody would lean towards the natural leader because we had raid leaders.
yep.
And literally they realized is that they really could do it themselves. They just need
hmm
to kind of build that confidence to do it.
And that's where what you just said is where my be kind comes in. If that person messes up, nobody is going to hold it against them. Even if they lose a raid pass, our goal is to let that person try, succeed. I have had so many times where I've messed up raids. I still mess up raids, and I can't even tell you, how many I've hosted at this point, but I'm
But
still
I
messing
mess
up.
up stuff because of my antics. So I mean, I'm no different.
Right, right. But the thing is, and so that's part of why having an inclusive environment and having that be kind rule is so important, because someone is going to take that leap and host a raid for the first time and not feel supported. That's, I think, the easiest way to turn somebody off, to get somebody to no longer raid again, or host a raid. Not no longer raid again, but host raids, is if you turn around and say, "Oh, thanks a lot, I lost the pass." You got to be supportive of that
Just to
person. And
touch on that, the word I'm thinking of is empowerment. That's the word I was trying to think of. I was
yeah,
like, there's a word for this that I'm thinking of, and I'm just drawing a blank. So,
yeah.
we're towards the end of your time here on the show. My last question is, have you ever thought about maybe what life would be after Pokemon Go? Or like, what would cause you to finally maybe put the game down? Have you ever kind of given that any thought at all?
So it's something where I have such a good time playing and I enjoy everyone. I know that how tight the community has gotten and how close some people are, that no matter what, whether it's Pokemon Go that unites us or whether it's just our friendship, that it could just now be our friendship, kind of bringing us together. So I'm not terribly worried about an after Pogo, but I also feel like I don't see it happening right away. I feel like there's a huge group of people and they still come every day. I hear people that are like, "I just picked the game back up. Can you help me out?" So it's still happening every day. And so I don't see a life after Pogo, but what I do know is that when it happens, if it happens, that it's a life with a lot of friends that I did not have before. And those friends are going to continue to be strong friendships, whether we're playing this game or not. The quote that I mentioned before, I
Sure.
kind of just want to throw it in because it's something that when people are introduced to my server, that it's the first thing you read.
Really? Okay. So whenever they introduce a server, they get a message with this quote.
Well, it's part of when you're agreeing to the rules.
Okay, gotcha.
And so it's from Meowth.
Oh, I love this one. I think I know this one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We do have a lot in common: the same earth, the same air, the same sky. Maybe if we started looking at what's the same instead of always looking at what's different, well, who knows? And so I think that that's a really great way of how Pogo has brought communities together, and the community that I run, and the way people are brought together despite so many differences in occupation, in nationality, in language. So I love it. I love looking at what's the same versus what's different.
Thank you for listening to As the Pokeball Turns, where every trainer has a story. If this episode resonated with you, share this episode with a fellow trainer and follow the podcast for more voices, more journeys, and more memories. I'm David Hernandez, and remember, your next Pokemon adventure begins here.